Namaskaram. Truth is not something you find on the surface. These days, if someone whispers a lie loud enough, it becomes tomorrow's headline. And the truth sits quietly, like a yogi under a tree, untouched, unseen, but always present. Before we rush to judge, before we form conclusions from chaos, we must ask ourselves, are we seekers of truth or just collectors of gossip? When allegations arise, it is not just about one person or one event. It is about the kind of world we are creating. Are we moving toward clarity or confusion, toward wisdom or just noise? Today, let us explore not just what is being said, but why it is being said and what lies beyond it. The real truth, not the convenient one. Truth is not a matter of opinion, it is a living force. But today, unfortunately, we are living in a world where truth has been reduced to a matter of convenience, preference, and even entertainment. If enough people say something, we assume it must be true. If it is trending on social media, it becomes gospel. But this is not truth. This is simply collective perception. And perception by its very nature is limited, distorted, and often dangerous. When we speak of truth, we are not referring to what you like or what I dislike. We are not talking about what is emotionally satisfying or what fits a certain agenda. We are talking about that which simply is, regardless of who believes in it, who denies it, or who manipulates it. In the yogic culture, we don't treat truth as a piece of information. We see it as a fundamental quality of existence, a dimension that needs to be experienced, not just debated. Look at the natural world. The sun rises not because we believe in it, but because it is the nature of things. A seed becomes a tree, not through opinion polls, but because of the intrinsic intelligence it carries. In the same way, truth does not wait for majority approval. It exists in its own power. But human beings, caught in their psychological dramas, often miss it. They project their fears, desires, biases, and wounds onto situations and then call that their truth. Opinions are cheap. Anyone with a voice and a platform can throw one into the air. But truth, real truth, demands attention, silence, and inner work. It is not something you can scroll past and grasp in a moment. It takes a certain level of receptivity to even be able to hold truth within you. If your mind is filled with noise, your ego inflated with judgment, and your emotions swinging like a pendulum, how will you ever perceive what is real? Today, allegations are made, and within moments, narratives are built. The court of public opinion declares its verdict, and the execution is swift, not in a legal sense, but in terms of reputation, dignity, and peace of mind. But who asked the deeper questions? Who sat still and observed, without bias? Who made the effort to see beyond the surface drama? When someone is accused of something, we must learn to separate the event from the noise surrounding it. This does not mean we dismiss or ignore allegations. No, that would be irresponsible. But to take every claim at face value without examination and to create a storm of outrage based on incomplete or manipulated facts, that is not justice. That is just a collective hallucination, fueled by unexamined emotions. In yogic science, we are taught to look at everything, every person, every situation as it is, not as we wish it to be. This requires a level of discipline and maturity that most people are not trained for. When you truly seek truth, you must be willing to be uncomfortable. You must be open to finding that your assumptions were wrong. You must be courageous enough to see things not as you imagine, but as they are. Truth is not kind or cruel. It is not biased or emotional. It does not favor anyone. It simply stands. And if we want to stand with it, we must first empty ourselves of the clutter that prevents us from seeing clearly. That clutter is our opinions, our attachment to being right, our need to belong to a particular side. Every time we substitute truth with opinion, we create distance from reality. And every time we act from that distorted space, we contribute to the confusion of the world. This is not a small thing. It is not just about one allegation or one individual. It is about the health of our collective perception. If we want a society that is rooted in clarity, in compassion, in genuine wisdom, then we must raise our standards for what we accept as truth. Truth has no need to convince. It does not scream. It does not defend itself. It just is. And in the presence of such clarity, all falsehood eventually burns away like mist in the morning sun. But to witness this, we must learn to see, not with our habitual thinking, but with awareness, not with prejudice, but with perception, not with anxiety, but with presence. Allegations are noise. Truth is silence that echoes forever. In this modern age, we have mistaken loudness for significance. The more a thing is repeated, the more urgent it feels, the more emotional it sounds, the more we assume it must be true. But noise has no depth. It can fill a room, it can fill your ears, it can fill your mind, but it cannot penetrate your being. Truth, on the other hand, doesn't always arrive with a bang. It doesn't argue, it doesn't insist, it just exists. Like silence, it is powerful not because it shouts, but because it holds everything within it. Judgment without clarity is the highest form of ignorance. To judge is not difficult. Any human being with a mouth or a keyboard can do it. But to judge without clarity, without understanding, without inner stillness, is not only dangerous, it is deeply ignorant. And yet, this has become the norm. In today's world, people form opinions faster than they take a breath. They scroll, they see a few headlines, they catch a viral video, and within seconds, they decide who is right, who is wrong, who is guilty, and who must be punished. This is not judgment. This is reaction. True judgment, the kind that comes from a place of awareness, cannot happen in a mind that is cluttered with prejudice, fear, anger, or a need to feel superior. Clarity is a prerequisite, but clarity doesn't come from more information. It doesn't come from louder voices or emotional arguments. It comes from stillness, from watching, listening, and observing. Not just what is being said, but how it is being said, why it is being said, and what lies beneath the surface. Without this kind of clarity, what we call judgment becomes just another form of violence. It wounds people, sometimes permanently. It distorts situations, it creates divisions, and it spreads suffering disguised as moral righteousness. People think they are standing for justice, but very often they are simply fueling their own egos. There is a certain pleasure in pointing fingers. There is a rush in declaring someone wrong. But if this is done without deep awareness, it becomes a form of blindness. The blindness of assumed knowledge. In the yogic tradition, we are constantly reminded that the mind is not a reliable instrument unless it is sharpened by inner awareness. The mind picks and chooses based on its past conditioning. It sees not what is there, but what it expects to see. It hears not what is being said, but what it wants to hear. This is why we emphasize the cultivation of clarity, not just through thinking, but through conscious stillness. Because only in stillness does the mirror become clean enough to reflect truth. A person who reacts immediately may appear passionate, may appear righteous, but they are not necessarily wise. Wisdom comes with distance, not emotional distance, but conscious distance. The ability to step back, to let the waves settle before deciding what is truly in the water. When you pour ink into a glass of water and shake it violently, everything looks dark. But if you let it rest, the ink settles and you can see clearly. Our minds are no different. We are not saying you should not have discernment. We are not saying you should not stand for truth or justice. But what we are saying is that your discernment must come from clarity, not confusion. Your stand must arise from insight, not impulse. Otherwise, you are not contributing to truth, you are only adding more noise to an already noisy world. People who rush to judgment often do so because it gives them a sense of power. In a world where many feel invisible, unheard, or uncertain, the act of judging becomes a substitute for self-worth. But this is a fragile foundation, because when your power comes from pulling others down, it is only a matter of time before you are pulled down too. Clarity, on the other hand, brings a quiet power. One that doesn't need to prove itself by attacking others. To clarity, on the other hand, comes a deeper knowledge of what is equally valuable. Indeed, it brings a power to oneself. Look closely at the moments when you judge. Observe your own mind. Are you reacting from habit, from groupthink, from unresolved emotion? Or are you truly seeing things as they are? This is not a small question. It is a question that determines the quality of your life, the depth of your relationships, and the integrity of your actions. The human being is not designed to live in confusion. Clarity is our natural state, but we have buried it under layers of mental clutter. And from that cluttered space, every judgment becomes a projection. Every accusation becomes a reflection of our own inner chaos. So we are not really judging others, we are broadcasting our own lack of clarity into the world. Only when the mind becomes quiet, only when the heart becomes balanced, only when the ego loosens its grip, can true clarity arise. And from that clarity, judgment is no longer destructive. It becomes a tool of insight, of compassion, and of responsibility. But until that clarity is present, it is better to withhold judgment, not because we fear being wrong, but because we value being true. When allegations come forth, they come with a storm. Media debates, social media fury, drawing room judgments. Everyone has something to say. Words fly faster than facts. Opinions spread faster than understanding. But if you just step back and watch, not react but simply observe, you will see how quickly truth gets gets buried beneath layers of noise. The allegation becomes more important than the evidence. The headline becomes more powerful than the actual event. And people get addicted to the drama, not realizing they're consuming shadows instead of substance. In the yogic way, we speak of silence not as the absence of sound, but as the presence of awareness. That silence is the space where clarity arises. It is in silence that a human being can touch the dimension of truth. But to get there, one must be willing to pass through the noise without getting lost in it. Most people are too impatient. They want conclusions now. They want to choose sides quickly. They want to feel righteous immediately. So they cling to whatever makes the most noise. But truth does not obey the timeline of your emotions. If you look at history, you will see many who were condemned loudly but later revealed to be innocent. And you will also see many who committed terrible acts but were protected by louder noises elsewhere. So, is loudness the measure of truth? No, it is just the measure of attention. And attention in this world is often hijacked by those who understand how to stir emotions rather than those who stand with integrity. This is why truth gets drowned. Not because it is weak, but because we are too distracted to notice its quiet presence. The real tragedy is not that people lie or make allegations. That has always happened. The tragedy is that people have stopped listening deeply. They hear only what confirms their bias. They share only what fuels their excitement. They support what makes them feel part of a movement, not what brings actual clarity. Truth is not interested in your movements, your hashtags, your slogans. It is only interested in what is real. When someone speaks the truth, it often doesn't sound exciting. It is calm, measured, sometimes even uncomfortable. It may not appeal to your sense of drama, but it has a ring to it, not in the ears, but in the being. It strikes something within you that is beyond thought. That is the echo of truth. It is not loud, but it lasts. Allegations come and go. Some are true, some are false, some are exaggerated, some are misunderstood. But truth remains, whether anyone acknowledges it or not. Noise demands immediate reaction. Truth asks for silent contemplation. Noise thrives in crowds. Truth descends when one is still. Noise is about control. Truth is about liberation. But who wants to be still today? Who wants to sit quietly and reflect when outrage is more entertaining? We live in a time when information is abundant, but wisdom is rare. And this is not because truth has disappeared. It's because we have lost our capacity to receive it. The yogis say that the most powerful things in existence are silent. The earth spins in silence. The sun burns in silence. The universe expands in silence. Truth belongs to that same domain. But we have been trained to respond to noise. We have been conditioned to trust what is repeated, not what is real. So when allegations arise, they become the story. The person becomes the symbol. The noise becomes the narrative. And in the middle of all this, the truth waits. Not hidden, but overlooked. To truly understand anything, you must become silent within yourself. Not passive, but silent. That means you are not pulled by every opinion, not stirred by every accusation, not shaken by every claim. You are rooted in a deeper awareness that watches, that waits, that sees. Only from that space can you begin to sense what is true, not based on convenience or emotional charge, but based on a direct perception that arises only in stillness. Reputation is public perception. Integrity is inner reality. The two are often mistaken for one another, but they are as different as the sky and the soil. Reputation is like the image cast by a shadow. It moves, it changes, it depends on the direction of the light. Integrity, on the other hand, is the ground beneath your feet. It doesn't shift with opinions, doesn't bend with trends, and doesn't need validation. It simply is. People today live as though reputation is the ultimate currency. They sculpt it carefully, like a mask they must wear in front of the world. Every move they make is calculated not for truth, but for how it will be perceived. This is not a life of freedom. This is a life of imprisonment. When your every action is filtered through the fear of how others will see you, you are no longer living authentically. You are performing, and performance, no matter how convincing, is not the same as presence. Integrity is not a show. It is not visible in Instagram posts or press releases. It is that quiet strength within a person that holds them upright even when the winds of slander blow strong. It does not panic when misunderstood because it is not built upon others' approval. Integrity is what you are when no one is watching. You are putting away your apology to protect your own. It is not a script you memorize. It is a truth you embody. And the strange beauty of it is, those who possess it most deeply often speak of it the least. When allegations arise, reputation is the first to tremble. It gets shaken, questioned, shattered even, because reputation lives outside of you. It belongs to others. It is shaped by voices you cannot control. But integrity remains untouched unless you abandon it yourself. Even if the whole world believes otherwise, if you are rooted in your own truth, there is a stillness within you that no storm can reach. The tragedy is that in times of chaos, people mistake the falling of reputation as the collapse of character. But they are not the same. A lie can destroy reputation in a day. Only you can compromise your integrity. And when you begin to live from this awareness, you stop chasing approval. You stop explaining yourself endlessly. You stop being a puppet pulled by the invisible strings of public opinion. Integrity is not about being perfect. It is about being real. It is the courage to stand in your truth even when it costs you comfort. It is the willingness to remain silent when speaking will only feed the noise. It is knowing when to act and when to wait. And this knowing does not come from logic alone. It comes from alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions are in sync with what you know deep down to be right, then integrity becomes not something you strive for, but something you live by. In today's world, image often overshadows essence. People are more concerned with how things look than how things are. But there is a price to pay for this obsession. When the outer world collapses, and it often does, those who have invested only in reputation find themselves hollow. But those who have cultivated integrity remain rooted, because their strength was never borrowed from the outside, it was grown from within. You cannot buy integrity, you cannot borrow it, you cannot inherit it. It is earned moment by moment, in the choices you make when no one is looking, in the truth you speak when lying would be easier, in the stillness you hold when the world expects a reaction. And once you have tasted that inner steadiness, reputation becomes secondary. Not irrelevant, but no longer your master. The pursuit of reputation is noisy. It involves manipulation, strategy, calculation. The life of integrity is simple. Not always easy, but simple. Because when you are true to yourself, you don't have to remember your lies. You don't have to maintain a facade. You can rest even in the middle of turmoil, because you are not trying to be someone, you are just being. In a world where perceptions can be bought and sold, where narratives can be manufactured and amplified, integrity stands alone. It may not shout, it may not shine, but it stays. And in the long run, it is integrity that brings peace, not applause. Because when the curtain falls and the noise fades, the only thing that will echo in your being is whether you stood true, not in the eyes of the world, but in the quiet court of your own conscience. In the face of slander, stillness is strength. The natural reaction of a human being when attacked is to defend, to explain, to retaliate. It is instinctive, but instinct is not always intelligence. Instinct is often just memory in motion, what the body or the mind has learned through survival, not what it has understood through awareness. And when slander strikes, it does not strike only the name or the reputation. It strikes the ego, the sense of identity. It shakes the idea of who we think we are in the eyes of the world. That is why it hurts, not because it is always true, but because we have attached ourselves so deeply to how others see us. Stillness in such moments is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is power in its most refined form. When you are still, you are not giving the slander any fuel. You are not playing into the drama. You are not confirming anything, not denying anything. Out of fear, you are simply choosing not to be disturbed by noise. This takes inner strength, not outer force. It requires you to be anchored, not reactive. Stillness is misunderstood. People think it means doing nothing, but stillness is not inaction. It is intense presence without distortion. It is clarity without chaos. It is the ability to see through the smoke without fanning the flames. In the yogic sciences, stillness is considered the highest form of action because it does not arise from compulsion. It comes from conscious response. That means you are not acting because you are provoked, but because you are aligned. When someone throws mud at you, the immediate tendency is to throw it back. But if you are standing in a river, the mud cannot stick. Stillness is that river. It keeps you clean, not by denial, but by detachment. It is not that you don't care, it's that you care too much to reduce yourself to a shouting match. In a world driven by reaction, stillness becomes a radical act. It is a refusal to be pulled into the emotional turbulence of others. Slander is never really about truth. It is about power. It is about control. It is about narrative. When people cannot handle your presence, your clarity, your difference, They may try to reduce you through words, but words, though sharp, lose their edge in the presence of silence. This silence is not the absence of voice, it is the absence of fear. It is a silence that comes not from suppression, but from sovereignty. You don't have to respond to everything. Not every lie needs a rebuttal. Not every accusation deserves a defense. This doesn't mean you accept what is untrue. It means you choose your moment with care. You act when action will serve truth, not when it will merely satisfy emotion. The deeper you are within yourself, the less external chaos can shake you. That is the beauty of stillness. It gives you distance from the noise without disconnecting you from reality. When slander arises, those who are empty shout the loudest. Those who are full remain still. Because truth, when it is lived, does not panic. It doesn't rush to prove itself. It simply is, and over time it reveals itself. But the one who is still must carry the weight of misunderstanding, of mockery, of judgment. This is not easy. It demands courage. Not the kind that fights, but the kind that can bear the fire without becoming it. We have been trained to react, to defend our image, to protect our name. But what if the name is not who you are? What if the image is just a reflection, not the source? Then slander becomes like graffiti on a wall. It may change how the wall looks, but it cannot shake its foundation. That foundation is built through inner discipline, through alignment with one's own truth, through a willingness to remain quiet when every bone in the body wants to scream. Stillness is not the opposite of strength. It is its highest form. When the world moves fast, the one who can remain still sees more clearly. When the world screams, the one who listens deeply understands more fully. And when the world throws stones, the one who does not throw back begins to rise above it all. This rising is not external, it is an ascent of awareness. It is a shift from reaction to realization. Truth reveals itself through time, not through trends. In a society that moves at the speed of hashtags and headlines, people forget that reality does not unfold on demand. It unfolds in its own rhythm, like a seed breaking through the soil when the season is right. But we are no longer patient. We want to know now, decide now, judge now. We want clarity before the dust has even begun to settle. But truth does not work that way. It is not in a hurry. It does not participate in popularity contests. It does not appear just because it is called upon. It comes when there is space for it to enter. The mind that is restless, eager for closure, cannot perceive truth. It can only grasp pieces, fragments, impressions, but never the whole. And yet, people form conclusions from those fragments and carry them like swords. They repeat them, amplify them, weaponize them, and in doing so, they turn uncertainty into conviction. This is the danger of impatience. It turns perception into proclamation without waiting for reality to reveal itself. There is a difference between fact and truth. Facts are pieces of information. They can be collected, manipulated, rearranged to suit a narrative. Truth, however, is the context, the energy, the space in which those facts rest. You can have all the facts and still miss the truth. And you can sense the truth even when not all facts are yet visible. But this sensing requires receptivity, not reaction. It requires one to listen not just with the ears, but with the whole being. The process of truth unfolding is like watching the sky before a storm. You don't need the rain to fall before you know it's coming. There's a certain stillness in the air, a pressure that builds, a scent that changes. But only those who are attuned will feel it. Similarly, when something false is being presented as truth, there is often a tension in the energy, a forced push, a discomfort in the silence. But most people miss this because they are busy being loud. Time is the greatest revealer. What survives time is real. What crumbles with scrutiny, with patience, with presence, that is illusion. But for time to do its work, we must give it room. We must resist the urge to rush toward resolution. We must allow what is hidden to come into light at its own pace. This is not weakness. This is wisdom, because if you try to force the fruit to ripen, you only bruise it. In ancient traditions, seekers were trained not just in knowledge, but in waiting. They were taught how to sit, how to observe, how to allow truth to emerge rather than chase it. This is because truth is not a thing to be possessed, it is a space to be entered. And to enter that space, one must be still, silent, open. One must suspend judgment long enough for clarity to arrive. But today that training is lost. People want answers, not understanding. They want certainty, not depth. Truth is not afraid of time. It has no urgency to prove itself. Only lies need speed. Only lies need to be shouted before they are questioned. That is why, when something is pushed too quickly, too aggressively, you must pause. Not to doubt everything, but to see clearly. To sense what is real beyond what is repeated. To discern not just what is said, but why it is being said and who benefits from its urgency. Time also reveals people. In the beginning, everyone wears a mask, some out of fear, some out of habit, some out of intent. But over time, the mask becomes heavy. It slips, it cracks, and then the real face emerges. If you are patient, if you do not rush to judge or idealize, you will see people as they are, not as they wish to be seen. This is a deeper knowing, a knowing that cannot be taught, only cultivated through awareness and waiting. Those who stand with truth must learn to stand with time. You cannot force the dawn. You cannot pull the petals of a flower open. You must simply be present every day with patience and clarity. And in doing so, truth begins to show itself, not through argument, not through accusation, but through the quiet authority of what is real.